Welcome to No Broken Legs. I am your host, Evan Belfiore. Joining me by phone from across the house is Jimmy Champ. Jimmy, how are you on this Sunday evening of Labor Day?
I'm good. We're just still pouring them out for all the college football experts who don't know how to factor in the SEC isn't the only conference that gets to pay players anymore.
It's amazing how when everybody cheats at the same level, how much worse the SEC is.
Kind of crazy.
But nobody comes to listen to us talk about college football, Jimmy.
No, sir.
People come to hear us talk about the NFL, and we did the AFC over-unders. I will put a link in the description below of this video, of that video. This week, we go to the NFC side, and we are going to start with the defending Super Bowl champions, the Philadelphia Eagles. Their over-under sits at 11.5. They are plus 700 to win the conference, they are plus 700 to win the Super Bowl, plus 300 to win the conference, and minus 170 to win the NFC East. Jimmy, do the Philadelphia Eagles win more or fewer than 11.5 games?
I got the Eagles sitting in the 12 to 14 range. I think they'll play in the NFC Championship game again. I'm all over here. The defense is so young and good. And I actually really like the wide receiver and the running back they added. I like John Mechie and A.J. Dillon. You give Saquon a little bit of breathing room maybe on those short yardage carries so he doesn't have to be in there just in case they don't do the tush push. I think their team's really good. I think they're back to the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, I don't see anything that would make me think they're not one of the best teams in the league. That defensive line just dominated. They dominated everybody last year. They really took it to Kansas City in the Super Bowl, obviously. And as long as they have those guys up front, it really just lets everybody else cook. They're good, they're stacked, they're talented. They're probably going to be back, like you said, in the NFC Championship game. I'm confused that their odds aren't lower to win the conference. I don't know, man. It seems like they should be favored by more.
No, I totally agree. I think it's anything you're doing with the Eagles right now, the odds are really in your favor.
Yeah, and that's because there's a lot of people that like the next team we're going to talk about, and that is the Washington Commanders. The Armada over-under sits at 9.5. They're plus 240 to win the division. And that's the only reason that Philadelphia number isn't higher. Do you think the Washington Commanders can repeat their success from last season, Jimmy?
No, real quick to any new listeners that we've picked up. We call the Washington Commanders the Armada because we just can't get over how great of a team name that would have been that they missed out on. So I think the Armada really, really struggled this year. Jaden Daniels was spectacular. He'll probably stay spectacular. But I think the defense is like 2 seasons too old. I actually am taking the under here, and I think they missed the playoffs.
I'm looking at my notes for them, and they get Las Vegas, Atlanta, and Seattle as their 3 standings games. And then, you get the NFC North. You want to say that's 2. You get the AFC East. That's probably another 2. Man, you're going to need 4 or 5 wins in division. I want to put them at 10, but I don't know if I can get there. And I'm looking. I have an over for them, but all of my notes are negative.
Yeah. I just think 10 just the absolute everything goes right feeling, and teams don't normally hit that spot. And I just think their schedule's really tough. I think they actually have a really tough schedule. I'm not sure they get a win in the NFC North, maybe Chicago, but I think their schedule is just too hard for them. I think they're going to regress, and I think they miss the playoffs. I really do.
Yeah, they do feel a lot like that Houston team last year, where we thought, I bet they'll probably win about the same number of games even if C.J. Stroud is better. And if Jaden Daniels can be better, and they could still only win 9 or 10 games. And they converted 87% of their fourth downs last year.
Yes, they did.
If that's something that we get to about week 6, week 7, and they're still converting fourth downs at a high rate, then we're going to have to readjust. I'm going to have to readjust how I think about this team, because that doesn't seem repeatable. But if they show a talent for being able to convert fourth downs for whatever reason, it can't be ignored.
Yeah, I feel like, me and you talked earlier today that, there's always one team when we're doing this, there's always one or two teams that we're too low on and one or two teams we're too high on. And I feel like for most of my NFC action, most of my NFC futures, playoff bets, things like that, I feel like the Armada are a team, one of the few teams in the NFC that could hurt me. Because if Jaden Daniels does get better and things do go well and they can actually convert at that rate and keep doing a lot of things they were doing, they could get to 11 or 12 and really be somewhere in the playoffs, maybe even push the Eagles. I just don't see it. I think they're the team that takes a step back this year.
They absolutely could not stop the run last year.
No, and like I said,
and with a lot of teams focusing more on running game, on offense, that seems like it would play against their strengths. Do you think there'll be any lingering bad feelings from the McLaurin incident?
Of course.
Yeah, contract disputes are never a good thing for teams and clubhouses.
Even if it's not intentional, I believe he missed a good portion of camp. So he's, to start the season, he's probably going to be a little bit behind his teammates, which could be a problem if they're not all at the same speed at the same time.
Yep. One way to avoid contract disputes is to, just trade the player that you have a dispute with. And that leads us to the Dallas Cowboys, Jimmy, who shockingly traded Micah Parsons for 2 first-round picks and a 30-year-old defensive tackle that is supposed to shore up the run game of the Dallas Cowboys, even though the Green Bay Packers were awful against the run last year. I don't know how any of it makes sense. I was an under on this team before the Micah trade, so that's not going to make me change my mind. Their over-under was 8.5. It's, I think, drifted closer to 7.5 now. Where do you have the Dallas Cowboys this year, Jimmy?
Yeah, it's drifted down to 7.5, and I'm actually taking the over on that. I still think I don't think the Micah Parsons thing. I mean, there's nothing that makes sense. All of the interviews Jerry Jones have given have been crazy talk. Mike, that made the Green Bay Packers an immediate Super Bowl contender. But when I look at the Cowboys' schedule, I still feel like, especially with the addition of George Pickens, I think they will still be able to outscore a lot of teams that they have on their schedule.
When we were talking before the pod, I said they are like the poor man's version of Cincinnati. Bad defense, but they should put up a ton of points on offense. Just which of those two things is going to come up a little bit more?
Yeah, exactly. I think they play enough bad teams that they're able to capitalize on it. Now, at 8.5, I was on the under because I feel like 8 or 9 is the ceiling. But when it comes down to 7.5, when I feel like the ceiling is 8 or 9, I'm going to go ahead and lean to the over.
I think if they're going to hit the over, you're better off betting the to make the playoffs.
Yeah,
you're getting pretty high positive odds on that because nobody thinks this team's going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I also think they'll make the playoffs.
I'm not a big Brian Schottenheimer fan. Anybody who's listened to the podcast over the years knows I don't think he's nearly as good a coach as people like to say he is. Just that Dallas defense is terrible. They were bad last year with Micah.
Yeah.
They're not going to be any better.
Yeah, they're not better without him, no matter what Jerry Jones says.
Yeah. Our final team in the AFC East is the New York Football Giants. Their over-under sits at 5.5. If Russell Wilson, how many games does Jackson Dart have to play for you to consider taking the over?
There's no amount of games that would have to take I think the Giants are bad. I think they've got question marks everywhere on offense except for Malik Neighbors. I don't think the defense is good enough to carry the offense. I think the head coach likes the third-string quarterback better than the first and second-string quarterback. I think it's going to be a mess in New York. I think this is a bottom 5 NFL team this year.
3-14 last year, and they were terrible. they might have something with Jackson Dart. He has a lot of Josh Allen qualities, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
And Brian Daboll really helped Josh Allen grow into the quarterback he is. It's just, for me, I'm staying away from this unless you like the under, in which case, if you don't like Jackson Dart, take the under and just run to the bank. I think Jackson Dart could be good enough to help him win some football games. I just don't know if he'll play enough to help them even get remotely close to 6 or not.
Yeah, and I think it would take a couple weeks to get Jackson Dart into the lineup. Like he is still officially listed as the third string quarterback.
They don't get the best thing with the last place schedule because they wind up playing San Francisco, who was a bad team last year, mostly because of injuries. And then they also get Las Vegas, that's going to come in with a real professional organization under Pete Carroll, and it's going to be tough for them to win that game. Yeah, it's just Jackson Dart's going to have to be something for them to have a chance. So my brief flirtation with their over is also over, and I'm under. We now turn our attention to the NFC North, which is the division where Micah Parsons now finds himself. He's playing for the Green Bay Packers. The odds have really shifted with the Packers and the Lions. They're pretty even right now. For right now, we'll start with the Green Bay Packers because they're the ones that got Micah Parsons. Jimmy, they're looking at an over-under of still 9.5, although a lot of places have bumped that up to 10.5. You can get plus 185 for them to win the division, plus 650 for the conference, but plus 1,400 for the Super Bowl. So teams aren't fully buying them as Super Bowl contenders. What is your prognosis for the Green Bay Packers?
I think the odds on the over for the Green Bay Packers is stealing money. I believe they're a 12 or 13 win team. I think Micah Parsons was a huge addition. Wide receiver Matthew Golden they got in the draft has looked great. But I also don't think they're Super Bowl contenders because I don't think Jordan Love is quite good enough at quarterback. I think he could show during the year to make me go, crap, I wish I would have given him more credit. But as of right now, I don't think he is a top 4 or 5 quarterback in the NFC. And I think that will keep Green Bay from getting to the Super Bowl, which is a problem because the one thing with the Micah trade is it really puts them in cap hell. And they just lost a lot of first-round draft picks over different transactions. So they have to win now, and I just don't think they're going to get there because I think Jordan Love is just a step behind some of the other elite QBs in the NFC.
Totally agree across the board. I like him as an over. I think they're going to make the playoffs. I don't know. I don't like them to win the division, even with Micah, because I think the Lions are just good. But we'll get to them here in a second. He does help them in a lot of ways. Micah Parsons does, but I'm with you with Jordan Love. I was with that with Jordan Love last year. I think he's still inconsistent, and it's not like we expect him to just suddenly get better because he's been in the league for so long. I know he sat for a lot of those years, but if sitting didn't help it click for him mentally, I don't know how much another year of playing at this point in his career is going to help. Because he's been out there. This is his third year as a starter, fourth year?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be a surprise to see a jump for him in consistency and level of play both. And that's what it would take, I think, to just push the Packers just a little bit farther ahead.
Totally agree. The next team we'll talk about is the Detroit Lions, who had a ton of injuries on defense last year, still won 15 games. Still won the division. They're plus 200 to win the division. They're mostly 10.5, although you can find 9.5 for their over-under. They're plus 700 to win the conference, plus 1,400 to win the Super Bowl, so right in line with Green Bay. What are you expecting from the Detroit Lions this year, Jimmy? Normally, this is one of the teams we've disagreed on the last 2 years. You tend to fade them. I tend to like them. Is that going to continue this season?
It's continuing on my side for sure. I think the Lions lost. They lost both coordinators who were very, very good at their jobs. They lost offensive linemen. And I'm standing firm on I don't think Jared Goff is a good enough quarterback even with those weapons. If I give them 4 wins in the division, I look at their schedule and I see 7 or 8 games against teams that have like an equal talent roster with a quarterback coach combo that I think is better than Detroit. I believe Detroit makes the playoffs at 10, but I think 10 is their ceiling. So I'm on the under here with Detroit.
And I like the over. The consistency continues. I just think this defense is going to make up for anything the offense gives back this season from last season. They were really good last year. You expect them to fall back a little bit, but I just losing Aiden Hutchinson, they basically lost half of their defensive starters and they lost a lot of studs. I see them being better, but in a way where it's more defense driven than offense driven. They're still going to put up points. The one thing I will say that worries me is they have a center guard combo that they lose. If they show signs of trouble inside blocking, then this team's going to fall apart very, very quickly.
Yeah, if the offensive line is bad at all, that run game goes to hell.
And we all know that Jared Goff turns into a pumpkin when he gets pressure up the middle. That's pretty common for most quarterbacks, but Goff does not have the ability to escape.
Nope.
So I like Detroit until I see it. They have to show me that all those things have hurt them before I'm gonna not believe in them. But I'm a little more open to them being bad this year. Last year I was certain they were gonna be good. This year I'm pretty sure they're gonna be good. The next team we talk about is the Minnesota Vikings, who's a team I thought was gonna suck last year, and they won 14 fucking games. They started at 9.5. Their over under has pretty much been teased down to 8.5 everywhere. Jimmy, do the Minnesota Vikings win more or fewer than 8.5 games?
So, here are my thoughts on the Vikings. I don't think J.J. McCarthy and Carson Wentz are very good quarterbacks. I think with the weapons the team has, the two of them can mirror match, maybe even exceed a little bit of what Sam Darnold did. I think Sam Darnold's success was he did have a good run of himself playing good football, and I think the system and the skill players around him just make it great. I think this Vikings team makes the playoffs. I got two wild cards coming out of this division. I think it's stealing on the over at 8.5. I think it's absolutely stealing. I just don't. I know I look at the schedule and I don't see where there's not 9, 10, 11 wins.
The first thing that stood out to me when I looked at this team was they were 9-1 in one-score games last year.
Yeah, that doesn't usually stay the same.
And that's quite a feat. But, man, I took a second look. That defense is so good under Brian Flores. And he's just another head coach on that team because that's what he should be doing right now. Is he should be a head coach somewhere, but he's a defensive coordinator. And he just mixes things up and disguises his coverages so well. I was watching film breakdown on him. He's really at the forefront of we're going to run cover 2 deep with man underneath on one half of the field, but on the other half of the field, we're going to run cover 3 with zone underneath. So He's at the forefront of looking at the football field in 4 quadrants and really understanding how do we defend these parts of the field in a way that disrupts all the timing stuff that offenses are doing now. And he's been really effective at it. I don't really like J.J. McCarthy as a quarterback, but they seem to always win. They're like Green Bay. Like last year, I was like, I'm taking Green Bay on the over because Matt LaFleur always wins 10 games. And that's where I'm at with Minnesota now. I'm tired of being wrong about Minnesota. I'm going to take the over. I don't know if they make the playoffs. They probably do at the over because that'll get them to, well, I thought it would get them at 10. Now that would be 9. So, But you can get good odds for them to make the playoffs right now. Everybody's betting against this team, and it seems like a good time to throw some money on them because if they wind up being good, the odds are in your favor on this one.
Yeah, they're just doing so many things I like. Like with the start of the season, they're going to have a couple wide receivers out due to different things. So to me, going out and bringing Adam Thielen back, I thought was really smart. He looked really good in Carolina last year. Like, he looked like he could still play, and he knows how to play opposite a stud like Justin Jefferson. So I just think I don't think I agree with you. I don't think JJ McCarthy is going to be much of an NFL quarterback, but I think in this system he can compete. And I think their defense, I agree with you. Everything's about their defense. I think they're really good. I think this is still a really good football team.
The reason a lot of people are fading Minnesota is because they like the next team we're going to talk about, and that is the Chicago Bears. They have themselves a new coach in Ben Johnson that is going to hopefully get the best out of Caleb Williams. Their over-under sits at 8.5. Jimmy, you did not like Caleb Williams last year. Do you like him any better with Ben Johnson as his head coach?
No, but we haven't seen it yet. Like, if Caleb Williams can still be a really good NFL quarterback with the right coach, right system. So we'll see if he ends up being Ben Johnson's guy. I have question marks about their skill position players in the division they're in. Like, to me, there's an absolute realm where the Bears go 0-6 in the division. I'm not sold on this team at all. I wouldn't surprise if they're quarterback hunting next year, or we're headed down that path for the Bears. I'm all over the under here.
I thought they would be good last year. I had them in the playoffs. I don't like it. All the things that we've talked about, or all the things that you have talked about when we discuss Caleb Williams, I'm swayed. I'm taking the under 2. That offensive line is still pretty bad.
Yeah.
They have a lot of skill guys that you look at and say, yeah, they could be good, but you don't know that they're good.
Exactly.
And that means they're not that good.
That's how I feel about it.
Also as a quarterback, his consistency's not there. He doesn't have the accuracy. We'll see what it looks like early. If he starts humming, though, and it looks like he's good, then I'm going to start riding Chicago because they're probably going to be really good if he is.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Next up, we go to the NFC South, where we find a familiar face in the place that he's been very, very successful. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield. -110 to win the NFC South, and their over-under sits at 9.5. Jimmy, this just feels like a really easy over in division win bet.
Yeah, their defense is going to be even better than they were last year. I think adding Buka from Ohio State to the offense, especially with the number 2 wide receiver being injured to start the season.
Yeah,
I think
Godwin.
Yeah, I think Tampa Bay is in a great spot. I still like both their running backs. I got 9.5 at +100, and I feel like that's another one that's stealing. Like, I think it's absolutely stealing. I think they get to 10 or 11, and that's if they lose to every elite team they play. Like, if they just win, they should, and lose to every elite team they play, they're at 10 or 11. If Baker goes off in one of those games and they steal one, they could get to 12-13.
They beat Philly in the regular season last year. They beat him in the playoffs the year before that. Not sure if that was the Philly team that we saw late in the season last year, but I don't know. I guess we'll have to see it. I agree with you pretty much across the board. This team, I think, is going to be playing in the NFC Championship game. I think they're going to be able to rack up. I think they're going to be able to rack up a lot of wins. They get 10 games against the NFC South and the AFC South.
Yep.
9-1.
One's absolutely on the table.
And then you get the NFC West. I think they're better than 2 teams over there and probably even with the other 2. This feels like a team that if it all comes together on the defensive side of the ball, they could be a 14-15 win team and sneak the 1 seed.
Yeah.
The only team that I could possibly see challenging Tampa Bay is the Atlanta Falcons. Their over-under sits at 7.5, which tells you that they're probably not. I flip-flopped on this team when I was looking at them, Jimmy. I'll tell you all what I flipped from and what I flipped to. What do you think of this Atlanta team?
So I still think Bijan Robinson and Drake London have an opportunity to be like top 5 at their position in the league. Who the hell knows about Kyle Pitts? But it's all going to be just how good is Michael Penix. I think if Michael Penix is just good, like if he's just not incompetent, if Michael Penix is just good, there were a lot of toss-up 50-50 games where I was determining wins, And there are a lot of games I actually gave to Atlanta. So I have Atlanta at 8 or 9. I'm on the over here.
At first look, I was over for a lot of the reasons that you just mentioned. They do have weapons. On a second look, I like the under. And maybe that's because I've been burned by this team a couple of times. Kyle Pitts, I don't know what the fuck is going on with that dude, but he does not, the talent does not match the production.
Yeah.
Bijan Robinson showed everything that we expected to see of him in his rookie year, but they didn't really give him the ball much, which, seeing what happened last year, it just makes the year before that much more confusing from a coaching standpoint.
Yep.
And Drake London really blossomed last year with Penix. Is it enough? I don't think it's enough to overcome what I think is a really bad defense. They're not good at rushing the passer. I know they tried to address that in the offseason, but I don't think those moves are nearly enough, especially when you look at comparatively to like what Tampa did. Tampa went out and got Reddick. I know he's a mercenary, but they paid him, so he'll be playing this year. He'll go for it. like you have to be judicious with who you sign as a mercenary. I just don't know that Atlanta has enough talent on the defensive side of the ball to keep him in games, because I don't think Penix is going to have to be like a top 10 guy for them to win 8-9 games, I think.
Yeah, that could be fair.
Up next, we have the Carolina Panthers. Jimmy, they're over under 6 at 6.5. Are you a believer in this team like it seems so many others are?
No, I still have no faith in Bryce Young. I think their offense added some good pieces in the draft. I think the defense is mid. I don't see on the schedule. For me, I don't have this team getting to the over. I think they are probably a bottom 3 to 5 team in the league this year. I'm all over the under here. They're not talented enough, and Bryce Young isn't the guy.
Agreed across the board. Do you know who the Carolina Panthers remind me of?
Who's that?
How many times over the last 25 years have the Browns had a crappy team that maybe got their shit together for 6 games and went like 4-2 to end the season? Everybody's like, that team really came on at the end of the year, and they added, a bunch of like menial pieces that you're like, well, those guys, if they can all gel, they could be something. And the next year comes and they stink. That's what this Carolina Panthers team reminds me of.
Yeah, they do look a little bit like the Deshaun Kaiser Cleveland Browns.
Do you know how many points per game they gave up last year?
No, how many?
It starts with a 3.
Jesus.
31 is the answer to that question. 31 points per game.
Oh. Hey,
so if we spent all of last year talking about how long it had been since Kansas City scored 30 in a game, I think it's fair to ask how long it's been since Carolina hasn't given up 30 in a game. You just can't live like that, and you're not going to stack any wins. They're bad. But I don't think they're going to be as bad as the New Orleans Saints, who I don't know how their over-under is 5.5. I thought this was going to be 3.5, 4. I'm all over the under on this one, Jimmy. Do you think there's any hope for New Orleans?
Well, that's one of those things we found out the last couple of years, right? Like Vegas almost, with some of these real bad teams, Vegas doesn't want to be like disrespectful. Like we've kind of seen that the teams that are really awful aren't going to get to 6 wins, but people stay away from that 5.5 a lot. So that's where a lot of these end up. I think the Saints are the worst team in football. I think the skill position players they have left can't stay healthy. I think they have I don't believe in Shuck at all. And I think Rattler may be one of the worst starting quarterbacks in the last few years for any team. Like, I think this team is really bad.
Like, not just one of the worst teams in the league now, like just over the last several years, he's terrible.
Yeah.
Well, that's just what it is. The Saints played the game the Browns have been playing with the cap for years now, and it's finally caught up to them, and they're just going to be garbage for a while because they're not going to have any flexibility. They're going to be paying huge amounts of money for guys to not play for them, a lot like the Cleveland Browns. Our last conference is the NFC West, where we see the San Francisco 49ers as the division favorites. You can find them around plus 150 to plus 170 to win the division. Their over sits at 10.5. Jimmy, this team had a lot of injuries last year. They pay Brock Purdy. They're hoping to get some of these guys back. What do you expect from San Francisco this season?
Well, there's some things I got to talk about.
I always love it when you start an analysis like this.
I How in the world Debo is gone. Ayuk isn't going to start the season, and people believe they're going to win that many games. That's where I thought. Like Kittle, Purdy, and McCaffrey, and probably Robinson Jr., who they picked up, would have to be perfect for this team to be good. And I don't know if I think they can be perfect. But then I look at their schedule, and they have a where they go Cardinals, Browns, Titans, Colts, Bears.
Yeah.
That those are all W's. Like they're gonna get to 11, they're gonna get to 10 or 11, and they're gonna make the playoffs. I don't think they win the NFC West, but I think they get to 10 or 11 pretty easily and make the playoffs.
I don't think they're a Super Bowl contender anymore, but this is going to be a theme when we talk about the NFC West. They play both South divisions. That's
Yep.
8 games.
Yep.
Just an average Kyle Shanahan team against those teams, that screams 6-2, maybe 7-1.
I agree.
And then they're going to win some games in the division because I don't think much of Arizona or Seattle, which we'll get to shortly. I don't see how this team doesn't win 11 or 12 games, and I think they're a phony contender. I think they're the sort of team that a lot of people are going to jump on and be like, they're back, baby. They're coming. Watch out. San Francisco's in form, but I don't think they have the juice.
No, I don't think so either. I don't think they're Super Bowl contenders, but I just think the AFC South and NFC South are that bad. I agree. Like they're probably either going to beat Tampa Bay or Houston. Like they're probably going to win one of those games, and that'll be the one they lose will be the only one they lose between those games. And I think they probably split with the Rams, so that's a ton of wins right there because they're going to beat the Cardinals twice and the Seahawks twice. So yeah, I totally agree with you on the phony thing, and I don't even know if necessarily they're phony. I think they're just going to be better than the teams are playing, but I think they're going to get destroyed in the first round of the playoffs as the last seed.
Yeah, I could totally see them being a first-round exit team. Up next, we have the Los Angeles Rams, a team that you and I have always seemed to love. You look at them on paper, and it all looks so good, and then you hear about Matt Stafford's back. Their over-under sits at 9.5. They're plus 190 to 210 to win the division. Jimmy, you just said you have them getting the last playoff spot, so I assume that you have the LA Rams winning the NFC West.
Oh yeah, I think so. I think Devontae Adams has still looked good the last 2 years. Devontae Adams still has it. I think adding him to Puka Nacua is such an upgrade. And I don't actually think Cooper Kupp is that far off, but this is a heck of an upgrade for an offense that's already awesome. I love the 2 running backs, Kyron Williams and Blake Corum, and I actually don't think Stafford has to be healthy. I think with the weapons in the system, they'd be fine if Jimmy G has to play. I think their floor is 10 and their ceiling is 12, 13. So I'm all over this over, and I think they win one playoff game probably.
I wanted to take the under because they've burned me a lot lately, but I just can't. There's too much firepower on offense, and their defense is just loaded with young guys again. They lose Aaron Donald, and they just find a way to get his production out of 2 guys. They get the same production out of their defensive line with and without Aaron Donald, it seems. It's really quite remarkable. I don't know what else to say. I think even with Jimmy G, they're going to be able to – even with Jimmy G, the offense will work. It's just – they're going to win 10, 11 games. They'll probably – I like them to win the division. I think San Francisco being favored for the division, I think the Rams at plus 200 is a steal.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Up next, we have the Seattle Seahawks, who, man, they almost made my year last year, but they just missed the playoffs on the tiebreaker. They were like Denver last year. They had a great over-under. It was really low. This year, their over-under sits at 7.5. What are you expecting from this Seattle team? They bring in Sam Darnold. The defense was kind of okay, but a lot of turnover there on the offensive side of the ball. Do you think it pays out for him?
No, I don't think Sam Darnold. I think he is going to come back to the Sam Darnold we know and Drew Lock will end up getting some quarterback run. I had this. I was fortunate. I was able to get this at -8.5, so I was on under. At -7.5, I would probably still leave the under because I think 8. I look at their schedule, what they have on their roster. Jackson Smith and Jigba is an awesome wide receiver, but I have them. I got them in the under. I don't think they're going to be very good this year.
Agreed. I don't trust Sam Darnold. I never have. That's part of the reason I didn't like Minnesota last year. He's not going to have nearly the same weapons. I know you just mentioned how they have one good receiver, but he's not Justin Jefferson. And that's not a knock on him. Nobody's Justin Jefferson. But the rest of that offense doesn't have the weapons. And it doesn't look like McDonald has really been able to capture that essence on defense he had the 1 year in Baltimore. And it seems like maybe he's a guy who's better suited to be a defensive coordinator than a head coach. Because this team looks like it's like going to be pretty mid to bad. Even with the easy schedule, like if they lose to Jacksonville or if they go 2-2 in the AFC North or AFC South, that's not going to surprise me at all.
No, and that's where I see that happening. Like wins that I think are automatic for the other teams, like they're going to lose to Houston, they're going to lose to Jacksonville, and I just don't think
Tampa's going to beat them.
I think beat them as
well. That means we end with alphabetically the first team in the league, and that is the Arizona Cardinals. Their over/under is 8.5. Jimmy, I don't understand. Do you know how many times Kyler Murray has won more than 8 games in his NFL career? Once. That's the number. I'm under. I don't know why anybody thinks this team's good. Kyler Murray's finally getting some smoke for not being a very good quarterback. And I mentioned it in one of our previous podcasts that the one time that he made the playoffs, his playoff game was just atrocious. I mean, it's one of the worst playoff performances I've ever seen. Do you think this Arizona team has anything, or are they going to be QB shopping and moving on from Kyler Murray after this season?
Well, I mean, I haven't looked at his contract recently, but if I remember right, it was pretty hellacious. So I don't know if moving on is necessarily an option, but I'm with you on the under here. Just like I thought the Tampa Bay odds were stealing on FanDuel, for the Cardinals, you get on 8.5, you get plus 105 on the under. So you put that together with the Buccaneers. I mean, you get really good odds, really good value on what I think is a pretty safe bet. I don't think if all these other teams are good, then somebody has to be bad. And I think Arizona their team is okay-ish, and they have inconsistent quarterback play that's poor more than it's good. So I think 7 or 8 is the cap for that team.
That was a 5-year, $230 million contract.
Yeah.
With $103 million guaranteed at signing.
Yeah.
They had to keep him this year because if they would have moved off of him last offseason, it would have been a $100 million cap hit.
It was a huge number.
That number does drop to $57 million next year. So if they decide to just tear it down after what I think is going to be a really bad season, that would be the time to do it. You go ahead and you just go into the season with whatever retread quarterback you want to go out there with, or maybe take a flyer on somebody in the lower rounds and give them the reins and just see what happens. And play towards the next year after your cap cleans up. But I don't think Kyler Murray is going to be an Arizona Cardinal next season, so I think it's going to go very poorly for them. I just don't know who's going to want him.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if he was available. I don't know. I mean, I would think I would hope Carolina and New Orleans would take him over their current starting quarterbacks, but I think those might be.
Carolina going from one small quarterback to another, that would be hilarious.
Well, they'd go to one that's a little bit faster.
So, Jimmy, who do you have in the playoffs from the NFC, just to recap?
So, my NFC playoffs, I think the Eagles go in as the 1 seed and get the bye. And then I go Packers, Bucks, Rams, Vikings, Lions, 49ers. The second round, you have the Eagles playing the Rams, the Packers playing the Buccaneers. And the NFC championship game will be the Eagles and the Buccaneers. And I think that defense by them will have figured out how to stop the tush push. And I think Baker puts the cape on for the day, and the Buccaneers play in the Super Bowl, man.
I've said many times on this podcast that if you simply bet what would cause the most misery for Browns fans, you'd be able to retire.
Yeah.
What do you think the reaction in Cleveland would be if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers make the Super Bowl? Not win it, but just make it.
Yeah, no, I don't think it would really be that bad because our local sports radio stations have made a lot of people believe Baker wasn't that good. So they've all decided that.
I think they would continue that. I really do.
Yeah, I don't think they would. There would be very few. Outside of a small group of, dubbed Baker bros, I don't think you would get a lot of people really trying to be like this was a mess up, when in reality it would be the biggest Andrew Berry fail of his time in Cleveland.
I have Philadelphia winning the NFC East, Detroit winning the North, Tampa Bay the South, and the Rams winning the West. And then I have, who do I have? San Francisco, Green Bay. Oh, I don't have a seventh playoff team. Well, shit, who's that going to be? It ain't going to be Arizona or Seattle. No Carolina. I'm not betting on Atlanta to make the fucking playoffs ever again as long as I live. Man, I think it's going to wind up being Washington by default.
There you go.
I think they're going to win 8 or 9 games. 9 games will probably get them in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think it's going to take 10 or 11 in that.
Wow. There's some bad teams in the NFC. Maybe Minnesota surprises. Although no, that's who I would go. I would have Minnesota as the third playoff team. Sorry, not Washington.
Yeah, there you go.
Jeez. Learn how to read your own notes, man. So I have Philadelphia and Tampa Bay in the NFC Championship game. I have Philadelphia winning that game. I have the Super Bowl as a rematch. I have no idea if Kansas City will be good enough to make it a game, but I think we're going to see a Super Bowl rematch. You have the Baltimore Ravens, if I recall correctly, from the AFC facing Tampa Bay. Who do you have winning the Super Bowl?
I think gets the Super Bowl championship. I think the Ravens get it done. I think that Baltimore offense will be as good as they always are, and the defense will be able to just slow Baker down enough. I think the Ravens get a Super Bowl victory.
Man, Ravens Tampa Bay, that is like ultimate Browns misery.
Yeah.
Let's quickly wrap with some Browns talk.
Ugh.
We've reached the point of the season, or we've reached the point of the off season where Browns fans are talking themselves, or Browns media, I should say, is talking themselves into, if we beat Cincinnati, they could go in there to Baltimore and like really ruin their franchise thing. And I'm like, oh boy, here we go again.
No, they can't.
I know. I think they have a realistic chance of beating Cincinnati because I think everybody has a chance of beating Cincinnati because that defense is so fucking bad. But this would be the year of all years that Cincinnati should come out guns blazing, wouldn't you think?
I mean, yes, Burrow has been healthy. He's played. They've looked good. Yeah, the Bengals, I still don't know who I'm going to pick in that game because both of them need it. Like, both of them need it real bad. And I don't know who to pick. And I would just say to any Browns fan out there that believes the Browns are going to get 7, 8, 9 wins, please get a hold of us. We'll set something up so you can tell me the game and explain to me where those wins are on the Browns schedule. The Browns have a tough schedule against a lot of teams that I think are just going to be better than them. The Browns better beat the Bengals week 1. Because if not, they're going to be probably 1-5 or 0-6. I think if they don't beat the Bengals, I think they're 0-6, and then it's just going to be what? Oh my God, it's going to be crazy. Wide receiver, everybody's finally going to know we're not good enough at wide receiver or running back. They're going to still see the couple holes on defense by then. Denzel Ward should be out for the year. People will be discussing what do we do with Joe Flacco with the quarterback spot. I think it's going to be a really tough year for Cleveland, and I just don't see where those wins are that the people are telling me they're going to get.
Yeah, I mean we've been pretty down on the Browns. Even Ron was down on the Browns. And it's not often that the three of us are all going the same direction with a team, which usually foretells something bad. And the
Yeah,
way they're being talked about is also not good. Just even the most ardent supporters can't realistically go above 7-8. I heard Mary Kay this weekend on with Daryl Ryder, and she was talking about the over under being 4.5, and I was like, no, Mary Kay, it's 5.5, and she's given herself some leeway to say they might win, 5 games, 6, 7, 8. Like even when she talks down the team, she finds a way to make it sound better than it really is. It's really remarkable.
yeah. When every Cleveland sports show, when they're talking about the Browns, how the season's going to be, when they all have to start. Well, even though all of the national media is down on the Browns, I think they're like when you all have to do that, you're all wrong. Everyone else is right. Like you're doing a disservice, Cleveland sports talk radio, to your listeners talking about the Cleveland Browns. It doesn't matter that they got 2 first rounds next year because they're not going to be good draft picks because the Browns are going to win 8 or 9 games. Like you're doing a disservice to your station, a disservice to your listeners. Like, guys, buckle up. This team is not good enough still in a lot of positions that matter. We know what Joe Flacco is going to be, and that first stretch of the season, I think it's just going to break the team. I think it's going to be really bad, and I mean, I don't even know. Maybe Stefanski's the hot seat head coach. I don't know. Like
No, I
it's
think I think they've gotten a pass. This is a reset year, and they're
oh,
just going to let it go.
we're just oh my god.
But don't worry, Jimmy, because I've heard basically every talking head in Cleveland talk about how nice of a ball Joe Flacco throws.
Yeah, it does. It was
It's just
it
that
was
nice
really
tight spiral.
all the ones the Texans intercepted in the playoffs were really nice and tight.
Yeah, they really were. Uh, it's just they got a bunch of offensive linemen that are either old or injury prone, and we think that when those guys play, they'll be good.
Yep.
They're just not a good football team, and they don't have answers at any of the big important positions outside of Myles Garrett. Even though I think the defensive line will be pretty good, the opening line for Cincinnati right now is 5.5, and I would lean taking the Browns with the points because I think that's probably a field goal game, especially in Cleveland.
But I mean, that line right there should tell you what Vegas and National think about the Cleveland Browns.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and I think they're right because most of Cleveland media continues to do this thing that a lot of fans do, which is you're comparing this Cleveland Browns teams to Cleveland Browns teams of the past. And those teams weren't very good. Like they just weren't. So yeah, this Browns team's better than the one last year, but that team sucked. And that team would probably win 1 or 2 games in the NFL this year with the
Yeah,
current schedule. So even if they improve off of last year, I still think you're only looking at 3 or 4 wins. I struggle to find 5.
yeah. It's just to me, it's like making the leap that the offensive line and the secondary are both just going to magically stay healthy all year is a crazy leap. And then the problem is they don't have good depth at either position.
No, and they really they're counting on Newsome as a cornerback.
Yeah, well, and Denzel.
Yeah, and Denzel, he's already been dinged up, and at some point
Yeah,
he'll miss 3 or 4 games because he always does.
yeah, not happy. I just
Yeah, it's going to be a shitty year, and it's going to be even
I,
shittier when we have to go through an off season of hearing about how it's not anybody's fault and nobody's going to be fired.
yeah, I'll tell you, if it turns out we're going to be really fun watching Joe Flacco have MVP level here because that's what it would take.
Yeah, and I, how do you think they handle it? If they're 2-4, do you think they try and bring in Dylan Gabriel? They seem to love that kid.
Yeah, oh yeah, Kevin Stefanski really likes Dylan Gabriel. Yeah, no, I think that's when, as we've talked about that all these quarterbacks are going to play. I think they're week 7 games is when you'll start to see the quarterback changes if things go the way we think it's going to go. Maybe if Joe Flacco comes out of it 3-3 or 4-2, it's a whole new thing. But I think they'll be 1-5 or 6, and I think that's where the carousel of quarterbacks come in.
Let's see. You get Cincinnati. Oh, man. Baltimore, Green Bay, Detroit, Minnesota, Pittsburgh. Then you get Miami and New England before the bye. Man, that just... I don't even... Like, 2 wins seems optimistic.
I agree. And I think, Dylan Gabriel could come in, light a spark, and you beat Miami, but I think you lose to New England easily. So...
Yeah, you would expect that New England defense to have something for a younger quarterback. And then you see later in the year, like, okay, you go play the Jets, but that's a defensive team. Maybe they confuse your rookie quarterback. Then you get Baltimore. The Raiders are going to have Pete Carroll, and I just expect Pete Carroll to outcoach Kevin Stefanski.
Yep.
Then you get the 49ers, which is a game maybe you steal. Greg Schwartz does seem to do really well against the Shanahan offense. They stole a game a couple years ago with a doinked field goal. Then you get Tennessee and Chicago. Whew, boy, and then you get Buffalo. That's probably going to be an ugly football game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just doesn't look good. I don't know how much we need to belabor how much we think the Browns aren't going to be good. It just still shocks me that we expect them to be bad, but we also don't expect any changes to come along, which is really crazy because we're going on 10 years of DePodesta, and I don't see what he's added to the franchise to continue to draw a paycheck, and I don't fully grasp what it is that Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski do that makes everybody think they're so great.
Yeah, I agree with you on a lot of that. Like I don't understand what is what is going to happen. I think this was one of Andrew Berry's better drafts. It's not his fault what happened with Judkins. I think this was actually one of Andrew Berry's better drafts. So I think he's got something to build on, but I know I'm kind of out there by myself on this one, but I'm going to question the seriousness that Myles Garrett is going to have on this season. You demanded him on Pro Bowl to be traded. Then they threw all the money at you and you signed. Then Shador gets in all that trouble. And then you're like, I'm going to go speed 2. Like, I just don't know what kind of seriousness Myles Garrett is going to have. I do think the defensive line will be okay. I question linebacker. I hate not having JOC. And I don't think the wide receivers are good enough. Even if they get good quarterback play, I still don't think the wide receivers are good enough. I think it's going to be a long season, man.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. Do you? Oh, I guess we should talk. Who do you think is going to be MVP?
Yeah, I just can't. Baker Mayfield.
If they get the 1 seed, Baker will be the MVP.
Yeah, the odds are really nice.
2,500, yeah, plus 2,500 for Baker. I think Jordan Love is in that same conversation with Baker, where that's a team that could potentially win 13, 14. That's a team that could win 13, 14 games, and if they do, that would make them an MVP candidate, and especially with they got to be getting tired of the Lamar Josh stuff. Yeah. I also think if you're looking among the favorites, probably Joe Burrow, although I don't think they're going to win enough games for him to be an MVP. It's just so hard to bet. I don't like betting this because this is a narrative award where they just seem to give it to whoever they want based on what the best narrative was. Like last year, it was Josh Allen's award, even though it didn't seem like he was all that great. Just like the year before, it was like, well, we'll give it to Lamar.
Yeah, I think if Tampa would have won a few more games last year, I think with the statistics, I think would have been in the conversation more. And I think they're going to win those couple more games. And there's nothing national media likes doing more than creating a narrative of here's how horrible the Cleveland Browns are right now. And I think we'll get that push.
Also, his third new offensive coordinator in 3 years. Yeah. His previous 2 have gotten head coaching jobs.
I think for me, if it's not Baker, then I would think that means Eagles are the ones I would go Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, that's the one that I'm really curious about is Jalen Hurts, because you expect it to be a quarterback, and if they just trounce through the league like we expect them to, he just puts up huge numbers. He gets a whole bunch of touchdowns rushing the ball with the tush push. his numbers will look good, and it would really be validating for that Super Bowl win last year where he just played like a stud.
Yep.
And let me look. I'm trying to see where the... So this is just insulting. Derrick Henry and Saquon are plus 6,000. Those are the first non-QBs on the list. They have Trevor Lawrence and Aaron Rodgers and Drake May and Bo Nix. And, like, come on, man. Like J.J. McCarthy ain't going to be better than Derrick Henry, and we all fucking know it.
Yeah, there's no world really in which a running back plays so well and a quarterback doesn't play good enough for it to go to a quarterback.
Yeah, I agree with that. Offensive player of the year, Derrick Henry, plus 1,200. Wow, there's a lot of big numbers here.
Yeah, there's a lot of value there. Just for those of you, if you don't follow along, the end of season awards, pretty much what the league has started doing is the MVP is pretty much the best quarterback in the league, and then the offensive player of the year is the best non-quarterback in the league. For the most part, is what they've been doing with the award.
Well, I don't have anything to add. Do you have anything else to add here before we wrap?
No, I'm good. Just ready for this football to start this week.
So Thursday night we get Philly and Dallas. Philly 7.5 point favorites. Whew. Home Thursday night. Crowd's going to be pumped up. I haven't really thought about these games, but my intuition says that's probably winds up being a closer game than we think.
Oh, no way. Philly blows them out.
You think?
Yeah.
That was my sort of first instinct, and then I was like, well, Dallas can score, and they do usually play Philly tough. I just thought, man, that Dallas defense is going to be pretty poor, so, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be shell shock. I think the Micah stuff is going to be shell shock, man.
Yeah.
And I think the Eagles have made a point that this is a new year, this isn't last year. They're going to want to make a statement. I think the Eagles probably win by 10.
I was going to say, I do like the over at 47.5.
Yeah.
The Friday night game, where they're trying to keep all the Taylor Swift fans paying that $5 a month for Peacock, the Kansas City Chiefs traveling to the LA Chargers. The Chiefs are 3-point favorites. Over-under sits at 45.5. What do you think about that one?
See, to me, this is a push. I think the Chiefs win by a field goal. So.
Yeah, the Chiefs, Andy Reid historically has always started strong, and that's really what I think a lot of teams give up by not playing in the preseason most of the time, because they play their guys more than anybody else.
Yep.
And they always come out, and they're really strong in September. This is a Patrick Mahomes special. They know they got to win this game, and I think they come out with some energy, and it's Justin Herbert in a big spot. So I think we have to fade the Chargers.
There you go.
All right, that's it. We'll talk about the Browns and the rest of the Sunday games on Friday. We'll get that podcast out to you Saturday morning, probably, so you can get your bets in. Jimmy, it's been fun talking football. We're here. We're on the precipice.
We're right there, man. There's no place I'd rather be, brother.
Well, thank you for joining me tonight. I want to thank all of you for listening. Please give us a like or subscribe so that you can catch every podcast throughout the year. We do pretty good at this and make a little money, so you can make a little money too. For Jimmy Champ, I am Evan Belfiore. Thank you for listening to No Broken Legs.